I'm Alana from Kids Read to Kids, and we are on Chapter 9 of Read All About It by Valerie Tripp. So we're ready to get started. Chapter 9, KrK&x. After that, the Kittredge's house seemed more cheerful, more like the home that Kit remembered before Dad lost his job. It was still crowded with boarders, but now the boarders seemed like friends. Thanksgiving was a happy day, full of laughter and lively chatter. But money was still tight. November turned into December, and Dad still hadn't found a job. On a brisk, bright Saturday afternoon, 2 weeks before Christmas, Kit and Ruthie were cheerfully skittering down the sidewalk together like blown leaves. They were going to the movies, which they loved to do. When the girls were close to the movie theater, Kit leaned forward. She put her fists in her pockets and pushed down so that the front of her coat covered more of her dress. "Hey, Kit, are you okay?" asked Ruthie kindly. "Does your stomach hurt or something?" "No," said Kit. "I'm fine." "Then how come you're all hunched over like that?" asked Ruthie. "I'm pushing my coat down," said Kit, "because I don't want everyone to see the rickrack on my dress." "Why not?" asked Ruthie. "It's cute." "Cute?" said Kit. "I hate it. My mother sewed it over the crease that was left when she let the hem down. I think it looks terrible." Actually, Kit felt as if the rickrack were a big, embarrassing sign that said to everyone, "Look at this old, outgrown dress I have to wear because I'm too poor to get a new one." But she did not explain that to Ruthie. Luckily, Ruthie was the kind of friend who was helpful even without explanations. "Walk behind me," she said. "I'll cover you up. Once we're inside the movie theater, it'll be dark and no one will see." "Okay," said Kit. She scooched up behind Ruthie, and the girls went into the theater. It was very warm inside. The air was buttery with the aroma of hot popcorn, and of course, Ruthie was right. It was dark. Even so, when Kit sat down, she spread her coat over her lap to hide the rickrack. "Want some?" asked Ruthie, generously offering her popcorn to Kit. "Thanks," said Kit. She took just 2 pieces of popcorn so that Ruthie wouldn't think she was a moocher. She already felt prickles of guilt because Ruthie had paid for her movie ticket. But as soon as the newsreel began, Kit was very glad she had given in and accepted Ruthie's generosity, because there on the screen was Kit's absolute heroine, Amelia Earhart, the first woman in history to fly a plane across the Atlantic Ocean all by herself. Kit stared at the movie screen as Amelia Earhart, in a sporty jacket, flight cap, and gloves, saluted the camera and climbed into the cockpit of her plane. Kit listened to the rumble of the plane's motor. She could almost feel the little plane straining to go faster, faster, faster as Amelia Earhart drove it down the runway. Then at last she could feel the exhilaration of lifting up off the ground and soaring above the clouds. The newsreel ended and Kit sank back. She was so carried away by Amelia Earhart that the cartoon after the newsreel went by in a blur. When the feature movie began, Kit didn't even try to make sense of the story. It was about a silly woman in a tiara singing and dancing her way up a staircase shaped like a wedding cake. At last, the movie was over. Kit and Ruthie walked out into the late afternoon sunshine. Ruthie turned to Kit and said, "Wasn't she wonderful?" "Yes," Kit agreed with enthusiasm. "I loved watching her climb into the plane and—" "Not Amelia Earhart," Ruthie laughed. "I meant Dottie Drew, the movie star." "Oh, her," said Kit. "Wasn't she beautiful?" breathed Ruthie. "Like a princess, almost." Sure," said Kit. She did not share Ruthie's fascination with movie stars and princesses, but she didn't want to be rude. Ruthie had paid for her ticket, after all. Kit might seem ungrateful if she thought the woman in the movie was silly. But Ruthie knew Kit too well to be fooled. She grinned. "I bet you didn't notice Dottie Drew at all," she said. "I should have known you'd care more about Amelia Earhart. How come you're so crazy about her?" "She's smart," said Kit. "She's brave, too. When she makes up her mind to do something, she doesn't let anything stop her. She flew her plane across the ocean all by herself. She didn't need help from anybody." Kit spoke with determination. "I want to be like her." "I know just what you mean," said Ruthie. "It's the same with me," she sighed. "I love to imagine that I'm a movie star or a princess." Kit didn't think her serious ambitions were the same as Ruthie's starry-eyed daydreams at all. "That's different, Ruthie," she said. "First of all, Amelia Earhart's a real person who does real things that really matter. Movie stars and princesses are just phony glitter and glamour. And I don't imagine that I am Amelia Earhart. I want to be like her. Imagining that you're a princess is just make-believe." "So?" Ruthie shrugged. "There's nothing wrong with make-believe." "Maybe not," said Kit. But imaginary stuff doesn't solve any problems or help anything. Oh, I think it does, said Ruthie. Make-believe can take your mind off your troubles for a while. That's a help. On the sidewalk ahead of the girls, Kit saw a sad sight. It was a pile of household goods dumped on the curb. A bed frame leaned against a chair, and a lamp lay sideways on the ground. Books, clothes, and pots and pans were jumbled together in a heap. Look, Kit said to Ruthie, pointing to the pile. That stuff belongs to a family that's been evicted. They've been thrown out of their house because they can't pay for it anymore. You've got to admit that make-believe and imagination are not going to help them. They should have imagined a way to get money, Ruthie said. They could have done something. I'm sure they tried, said Kit, thinking of how hard her own family struggled to pay the bills every month. Maybe they just couldn't keep up. Then, said Ruthie, they should have asked their friends for help. Maybe they were too proud to do that, said Kit. Ruthie shook her head sadly. And look where that pride got them. Thrown out on the street, she said. It won't be a very Merry Christmas for their family, will it? No, said Kit. It won't. She shivered. Come on, she said to Ruthie. Let's run. It'll warm us up. Last one home is a rotten egg, said Ruthie. The girls ran the rest of the way home to Kit's house. Kit quickly helped her mother scrub potatoes and put them in the oven before she and Ruthie went upstairs. The girls were engaged in a secret project with Miss Hart and Miss Finney. The nurses helped the girls unravel old sweaters and then used the wool to knit scarves. The scarves were almost finished, except for the fringe. Kit and Ruthie planned to give their scarves to their fathers for Christmas. Miss Hart planned to give hers to her boyfriend. Miss Finney said she wasn't sure which lucky guy would get her scarf. She couldn't decide between Tarzan and Franklin Roosevelt, who had just been elected president. Any news from Miss Hart's boyfriend lately? Asked Ruthie as the girls walked down the hall. Yep, said Kit. He's coming to Cincinnati at Christmas time. Long letters and fat envelopes still arrived nearly every day from Miss Hart's boyfriend in Boston. Miss Hart wrote back just as often, and her letters were just as long. Kit and Ruthie were curious about the letters, and Ruthie especially liked to keep an eye on the progress of Miss Hart's romance. Miss Hart must be thrilled, said Ruthie. Oh, if only they could have a romantic date while he's here. He'd probably ask her to marry him. Miss Hart's boyfriend is a student in medical school, said Kit. It'll take all his money to travel here. I don't think he'll have any left over for a fancy date. I wish you would, said Ruthie dreamily. Miss Finney and Mr. Peck could go, too, and they'd fall in love. That's what would happen if they were in a movie. Well, said Kit crisply, they're not in a movie. They're in real life. Too bad, sighed Ruthie. Kit knocked on the door to Miss Hart and Miss Finney's room. There was no answer. I guess they're working the weekend shift at the hospital, Kit said. We won't be able to finish our scarves today. Want to go up to my room and make a newspaper instead? Sure, said Ruthie with enthusiasm. We'll write about Amelia Earhart, said Kit. And Dottie Drew, insisted Ruthie. Okay, said Kit, grinning. Her too. And she danced up the attic stairs to her room the way Dottie Drew had danced up the wedding cake in the movie. Ruthie leaned over Kit's shoulder. Kit was typing a paragraph Ruthie had written about Dottie Drew. Wait a minute, Ruthie said. It's Dottie Drew, not Dottie Drow. And she's a movie star, not a movie-otar. You better fix those mistakes. I can't, sighed Kit. My typewriter keys are broken. The O looks like a U and the E looks like an O and the S doesn't work at all anymore. Oh, well that's okay, said Ruthie. She grinned and said slowly, oh wow, that's okay. Kit grinned too. I guess people will figure it out, she said. Anyway, the pictures are great. The girls had had the smart idea of asking Sterling to draw sketches of Amelia Earhart and Dottie Drew to illustrate their newspaper. Sterling's a good artist, said Ruthie as she looked through his sketch pad. See how he made Amelia Earhart look like you, Kit, freckles and all? Kit nodded. And he put you in Dottie Drew's fancy ball gown and tiara, she said. That's me, Princess Ruthie, giggled Ruthie, striking a princessly pose. Kit looked at the paper in her typewriter. There's still a little space left, she said. What should we write about? Christmas, said Ruthie. We can say, Christmas is coming. Everyone loves to read about that. I love everything about Christmas. What's your most favorite part, Kit? Christmas Eve, said Kit. That's when we put up our tree. Charlie's going to get us a free tree this year. We always decorate our tree on Christmas Eve. It looks so beautiful, especially the lights. We turn them on when we finish decorating and we have dinner next to the tree. Mother always makes waffles. It's our tradition. I love it. I love the tradition that you and I have, said Ruthie, when we go downtown with our mothers on the day after Christmas. Ruthie, Kit began, I'm sorry, I'm afraid. But Ruthie talked over her. I know you and your mother are awfully busy this year, what with the boarding house and all, she said. So I was thinking that maybe this Christmas, instead of the whole day, we could just go downtown just for a few hours? That'd be just as fun, wouldn't it? Kit believed in telling the truth, even when it was hard. Time isn't the only problem, Ruthie, she said. My mother and I don't have any money for lunch at a fancy restaurant or tickets to a show. We don't have money for presents even. Not this year. That's what I figured, said Ruthie. So I thought we could change our tradition and just go window shopping and have a winter picnic or something. I think, said Kit slowly, it would wreck our tradition to change it. We wouldn't change all of it, said Ruthie. We'd still get all dressed up in our best dresses, and I'd have to wear this rickrack dress, Kit cut in, which I hate. She knew she sounded like a sourpuss, but she couldn't help it. But it's Christmas, Ruthie insisted. You never know what might happen. You might get a new dress. Kit shook her head. The last thing I want my family to do this Christmas is to spend money on me, she said. I don't want dressings or outings or presents. The only thing I want is to find a way to make money. Find a wicked ogre, said Ruthie. Lots of times in fairy tales, a princess is kind to an ogre, and then he spins straw into gold for her, or he enchants her so that jewels come out of her mouth when she talks, or he grants her 3 wishes. Kit felt annoyed at Ruthie and her princesses. She and her family were real people, not characters in a fairy tale. For Pete's sake, she said, it takes work, not wishes to solve problems. That make-believe stuff is silly. There are no ogres in Cincinnati. Ruthie just grinned. Watch out, she said. If you're not nice, the ogre will make snakes and toads come out of your mouth. How'd you like that? Not much, said Kit. Impatiently, she pushed the silver arm that moved the paper up and out of the typewriter. But she pushed a little too hard because, to her horror, the silver arm came off in her hand. Oh no, she cried, holding it up for Ruthie to see. Look what I've done. Oh, now the typewriter won't work at all. Come on, said Ruthie, heading for the stairs. Let's go get your dad. I bet he can fix it. I sure hope so, said Kit. The 2 girls hurried downstairs. They paused in the hallway outside the living room because they heard Kit's parents talking to someone. The conversation sounded serious, so they knew they shouldn't barge in and interrupt. Kit's dad was talking. The room should be ready by the middle of January, he said. Then we can take in 2 more boarders. I'm afraid that'll be too late, said the other voice. The girls looked at each other in surprise. It was Ruthie's dad, Mr. Smithens, speaking. Ruthie started to go into the room, but Kit held her back. I've come today as a friend, said Mr. Smithens. Your name is on a list of people who owe money to the bank, people who are behind on their mortgage payments. I came to warn you that if you can't catch up on your payments, the bank will take your house and you'll be evicted. Evicted? Kit felt as if she'd been punched in the stomach. I'll hold off the bank until after the holidays, Ruthie's dad said. But if you can borrow the money from someone, you should. Do you think your aunt in Kentucky might help, Jack? Or Margaret? How about your uncle here in Cincinnati? Kit's mother started to answer, saying, Thanks, Stan, Kit's dad interrupted. We'll figure something out. Kit could hardly breathe. Evicted. She and her family were going to be thrown out of their house. All of their belongings would be tossed out onto the sidewalk, just like those she and Ruthie had seen on their way home from the movies. It's going to happen to my family, she thought. It's going to happen to me. She shuddered, and Ruthie touched her arm. Oh, Kit, Ruthie whispered, what'll you do? I wish. Wish, thought Kit. She jerked her arm away. She couldn't bear to hear Ruthie say one of her silly things about wishes and princesses and make-believe. Not now. It was bad enough that Ruthie had been there to overhear that terrible, humiliating news. Without a word, Kit turned sharply and went back up the stairs to her room, leaving Ruthie all alone in the hall. That was the end of chapter 9. We are almost through this book. So crazy. I hope you guys are enjoying it. So, head to the next video for chapter 10. And don't forget, our lesson plan is on kidsreadtokids.com along with all of our other resources. Happy reading!